They will never say it the way you need to hear it, not because the feeling is absent, not because the love is insufficient or manufactured or less than what you have been certain was there, but because saying it directly, vulnerably, in the clean and unambiguous form that the words "I love you" carry, requires a degree of exposure that the avoidant's entire interior architecture was built to prevent. The saying makes it real in the outside world, makes it visible. Makes it something that exists between two people rather than something that can be managed privately in the interior where it is safer and where the management protocol has more control over what happens to it. So they do not say it, but they show it. In the specific, oblique, deniable if necessary ways that the avoidance love always finds to express itself when the interior can no longer fully contain it. In the small behaviors that carry more weight than their surface suggests. In the particular, consistent, particular to you quality of how they are that is different from how they are with everyone else. Learning to read these expressions accurately, not with inflated hope, not with the wishful interpretation that sees love in everything, but with the clear-eyed, grounded accuracy of someone who wants to know what is actually there, is what this is about. They remember what you mentioned once. Not what you told them directly. Not the significant things that anyone paying basic attention would retain. The small things, the detail embedded in a longer conversation that was not the point of what you were saying. The specific preference mentioned in passing. The name of someone in your life referenced briefly. The thing you were worried about that you mentioned once and did not return to. These details are retained not through deliberate effort but through the quality of attention that love produces. When someone matters to you in the specific, genuine, interior claimed way that avoidant love takes, your attention to them has a different quality than your attention to people who have not been claimed. It stores rather than filters. It keeps what it encounters whole rather than processing it into vague summary. When the avoidant references one of these small specific things, accurately, weeks or months after it was mentioned, they are revealing the quality of attention they have been giving you in the interior, not in the performed, demonstrating that I listen way. In the involuntary, cannot help it way that genuine caring always produces. You were already present in their interior when the detail was registered, and things that are present in the interior get stored differently than things that are not. They show up without being asked. Not dramatically, not in the grand gesture that announces itself as significant. In the small, specific, practical way of someone who noticed something you needed and addressed it before you had to ask. The avoidant who loves you has been paying the kind of attention that makes this possible, has noticed what you carry, what you need, what would make something easier for you, and responds to the noticing without making the response into a statement. Without requiring acknowledgement, without the implicit expectation of reciprocation that would convert the gesture into a transaction. This showing up without announcement is one of the clearest nonverbal expressions of love available from the avoidant because it requires them to have been genuinely present to your experience. To have been attending to you in the specific, real, nothing is being performed way that genuine caring produces. The gesture is small. What it reveals about the quality of attention behind it is not small. Their presence changes when you enter. Something shifts. Not dramatically, not in a way that announces itself, but in the specific, subtle, registers before conscious thought way that genuine significance always produces in the body. They know when you arrive. Their humor becomes more particular, more aimed at the specific place they know you occupy because they have been paying the kind of attention that produces that knowledge. They are fractionally more themselves. The managed, self-sufficient presentation relaxes slightly in ways that are visible if you know what you're looking at. The avoidant cannot fully control this. The nervous system responds to the presence of someone who has been genuinely claimed before the conscious mind has time to manage the response. The specific quality of their attention in your presence, the orientation toward you that exists even when they are not looking at you, the awareness of where you are in the room, the slight but real change in the quality of their engagement, all of this is involuntary. Is the interior expressing itself through the body before the management protocol can intercept. They protect you without being asked. Claiming installs a protective instinct that operates without deliberate decision. It appears in the small advocacies, the willingness to say something on your behalf that they would not say for someone they have not claimed, in the quality of attention they bring when you are navigating something difficult. In the things they share because you came to mind when they encountered something, and the coming to mind was immediate and automatic. That involuntary association, the way something in the world produces you in their thinking without being sought, is itself the expression. They were not looking for a reason to think of you. You arrive because you are already there in the background of their ordinary experience, present in a way that is not chosen and not managed and not the result of deliberate attention. Simply there, the way things are there when they have been genuinely claimed. They let you see something real. Not the whole interior. The avoidant does not offer the whole interior to anyone, and the offering of it is not what this is about, but something real, something that is not the managed, self-sufficient, competent presentation they offer the world generally. They tell you something they have not told others. They let you see a mood they contain elsewhere. They are wrong around you without the defensive maneuvering that ordinarily protects the invulnerability the self-sufficiency requires. They laugh in a way that is more genuine, less edited, more completely theirs than the laugh they offer in most contexts. These are not dramatic disclosures. Are the small, specific, accumulating evidence of walls that are slightly lower in your presence than they are anywhere else, not because the avoidant decided to lower them, because the claiming makes the full management effortful in a way it is not with people who have not been claimed. The real keeps finding small ways through. That finding through is the love. Expressed not in words but in the specific, consistent, particular to you quality of someone who cannot entirely contain what they feel for you even when containing it is what they are trying to do. You do not need the words, you have already been shown, the specific quality of their listening. There is a difference between being listened to and being heard. Most people in most conversations are being listened to. The other person is present, is receiving the words, is constructing appropriate responses. The social contract of conversation is being honored. But the specific felt quality of being genuinely heard, of having what you said actually land in another person rather than being processed and responded to, is rarer and is immediately distinguishable from its approximation. The avoidant who loves you hears you in the genuine sense, not because they have decided to be a better listener. Because the interior that has claimed you is already oriented toward your experience in a way that makes genuine hearing the natural result rather than the effortful achievement. When you speak, what you say is received by someone for whom your experience is genuinely significant, is not being assessed for how to respond to it, is landing in a place where it matters. This shows up in specific ways that are worth recognizing. The question that arrives after you have finished speaking that demonstrates not just that your words were received, but that what was behind the words was received. The reference to something you said weeks ago that proves not just retention, but genuine engagement with what was said. The specific quality of attention during the speaking that is different from polite listening, a kind of stillness, a quality of genuine presence, the specific felt sense of someone who is actually there for what you are saying rather than managing their response to it. The avoidant who loves you does not perform this listening, cannot perform it. Genuine listening of this quality is not available on demand through the deployment of active listening techniques. It arises from genuine investment in the person speaking, from the specific, interior, already present quality of caring about someone's experience that the claiming produces. The listening is the love finding one of its most consistent and most honest expressions. What they do with your silences. The avoidant who loves you has learned the specific texture of your silences, not through deliberate study. Through the accumulated, involuntary, genuine attention produces this quality of having been present to you in a way that stores what it encounters. Your silences are not all the same. The silence of someone who is thinking is different from the silence of someone who is sad. The silence of someone who is comfortable is different from the silence of someone who is holding something they have decided not to say. The silence of genuine ease is different from the silence of managed concealment. The avoidant who loves you knows these differences, not because they were taught them. Because genuine caring about a specific person's interior produces, over time, the specific attunement to that person's particular way of being that allows these distinctions to be felt rather than simply observed. What they do with this knowledge is itself revealing. The avoidant who knows you are holding something does not always ask directly. Direct asking requires the specific vulnerability of admitting that they noticed, which is itself an exposure. But they do something, the quality of their presence shifts. They become slightly more available, slightly more oriented toward you, in a way that communicates without words that the silence has been read and that the reading was not indifferent, that what you are not saying has been registered by someone who cares what you are not saying. This reading of your silences, involuntary, accurate, expressing itself in the small quality shifts of presence rather than in direct inquiry, is one of the most intimate things the avoidant reveals without saying a word. Because it requires not just attention but the specific, caring, genuine investment in your experience quality of attention that love produces and that the performance of interest cannot replicate. the things they do not do around you. As revealing as the avoidance behavior toward you is the behavior that is absent around you. The specific things they do not do in your presence that they do in the presence of people who have not been claimed. The avoidant who loves you does not perform the same level of social management around you that they perform in other contexts. The specific, effortful quality of someone who is calibrating their presentation for the room is reduced. Not eliminated, the management protocol does not simply turn off in the presence of someone who has been claimed, but reduced. The edges of the performance are slightly softer. The calibration is slightly less constant. The specific, almost imperceptible relaxation of someone who does not need to be a particular way in your presence is present in ways it is not present elsewhere. They do not fill the silence with performance around you. The silence between two people who are genuinely comfortable with each other has a different quality than the silence between people who are managing their impression. The avoidant who loves you allows silences to exist between you that are simply quiet. Not uncomfortable, not requiring management, not being filled with the social content that prevents the quiet from becoming too honest. Just quiet. The quiet of two people who are actually comfortable being in the same space without the space needing to be occupied. They do not minimize what you say around you in the way they might minimize similar things said by others. The avoidant who has not claimed someone has a specific, default quality of slight dismissiveness, not cruelty, but the specific, self-protective management of not being too affected by what other people say or feel or need. Around you, this default is less present. What you say lands differently, is received differently, is not processed through the same slight dismissiveness filter that most things are processed through, is taken seriously in the specific, genuine, this matters because you matter way that claimed love produces, the way they return. The avoidant creates distance. This has been established as the defining behavioral pattern of the attachment style. The distance is real, is produced by the alarm firing, is the management protocol doing what it was built to do, but the avoidant who loves you returns. This is the specific, often overlooked, most honestly revealing behavioral expression of nonverbal love available, because returning requires something that staying away does not require. Returning requires the interior to have produced enough weight, enough accumulated gray, enough specific missing, enough honest accounting of what the distance is costing to override the system's preference for continued distance. The system prefers distance. The returning happens against that preference, happens because something was stronger than the preference. That something is the love. The return is the love overriding the system's recommendation, not permanently, not with the dramatic once-and-for-all quality that would make the pattern resolved rather than cycling. But genuinely, in the specific moment of the return, the love was louder than the management protocol's preference for maintained distance. The quality of the return is itself revealing. The avoidant who returns out of habit or boredom or the ordinary drift of casual connection returns with a different quality than the avoidant who returns because the absence of you specifically has accumulated to something that the system cannot simply maintain. The latter return has a specific quality of intentionality beneath its casual surface. Has the weight of something that was decided rather than simply happening, carries in its tone and timing and specific quality of contact the evidence of someone who has been carrying the decision to reach before the reaching became actual. That weight is the nonverbal expression of love in perhaps its most honest form, not the warmth that arrives when the alarm is reduced by good conditions. The deliberate return against the system's preference, the reaching that happens because not reaching was becoming too costly, what happens in their face when you are not looking. The avoidant manages their facial expression, has developed through years of practice the specific skill of maintaining the presentation they wish to maintain regardless of what the interior is experiencing. The competence face, the warmth but not too much warmth face, the self-sufficient, unruffled, I am fine regardless of what is happening face that the management protocol has made second nature, but the face, like the body, has moments of unmanagement. Moments when the interior produces an expression before the management protocol can intercept it. Moments that are available to be witnessed only when the avoidant does not know they are being witnessed. The expression that appears when you say something that genuinely reaches them before they have time to compose the response to it. The specific, brief, involuntary quality of someone who has been genuinely moved before the moving could be managed. The expression that appears when you leave, not the expression they are aware of producing, the one that arrives in the moment after the departure when the awareness of your absence first registers. The expression that appears when something genuinely funny produces genuine amusement before the amusement can be calibrated to an appropriate volume. These unmanaged moments are the face doing what faces do when the management protocol is briefly insufficient, are the interior expressing itself through the most honest available channel before the channel can be closed. Are available only in the peripheral, the glimpsed, the witnessed without being noticed moments that genuine intimacy produces when two people have been in each other's company long enough for the management to occasionally have gaps. If you have seen these moments and if you have been genuinely present with this person, you have seen something more honest than anything the avoidant has deliberately shown you, have seen the interior expressing itself through the only channel that was briefly available, have seen, in other words, the love in its most unmediated and most genuine form. The specific quality of their touch. Touch is one of the most honest nonverbal channels available, is direct, immediate, bypasses the cognitive management that governs language and expression, communicates directly from one nervous system to another in a way that is difficult to fully control or perform. The avoidant who loves you touches differently than they touch people they have not claimed. Not dramatically differently, in the specific, subtle, felt rather than observed way that genuine care expresses itself through physical contact, the touch that lingers slightly longer than the situation requires, the touch that arrives with a quality of genuine attention rather than the social automaticity of ordinary contact. The touch that has the specific warmth of something that is not being deployed for effect but is simply the natural, unself-conscious expression of genuine care finding a physical channel. The avoidant also reveals love through the specific quality of allowing touch. Being touched, receiving physical contact rather than initiating it, requires a different kind of openness. Requires allowing another person's warmth to reach the body, which requires allowing it to reach the interior that the body is always also expressing. The avoidant who can receive your touch with genuine ease, who does not manage the receiving, who allows it to simply land, is revealing something about what your presence has produced. About the specific quality of safety that being with you generates in a nervous system that does not easily feel safe in the physical presence of genuine intimacy. That ease in receiving, when it is genuine and not performed, is the body's honest expression of what the interior already knows. What the consistency of small things reveals. The individual expressions described throughout this, the remembered details, the showing up without being asked, the shifted presence, the protection, the real glimpses, the return, the unmanaged moments, the quality of touch, none of these in isolation constitutes definitive evidence of love. Any single one can be explained by other things. Coincidence, habit, general social competence, the ordinary warmth of someone who is decent toward the people in their life. What constitutes the honest evidence is the pattern. The specific, consistent, over time and across contexts pattern of all of these things being present and being directed at you in a way that is different from how they are directed at other people. The cumulative quality of a relationship in which the small things keep showing up, in which the attention keeps being particular, in which the return keeps happening despite the system's preference for maintained distance, in which the real keeps finding its way through despite the management protocol's ongoing efforts to keep it contained. That pattern is not accidental. Is not the random accumulation of behaviors that happen to cluster in your direction. Is the consistent, involuntary, genuine caring produces this expression of an interior that has claimed you and cannot fully contain the claiming. The avoidant will not say it, has been showing it. In the specific, particular, accumulating, consistent overtime quality of small things directed at you that are different from how they are directed at anyone else. That is the love, expressed without words, in the only form the interior can currently authorize, real, present, entirely genuine. In waiting, however privately, however without declaration, for the capacity to match it to finally arrive. Why the nonverbal is more honest than the verbal. The avoidance verbal communication is managed. This is not a criticism. Is simply the accurate description of what happens when a person whose interior architecture was built around the privacy of the interior engages with language which is inherently public. Words go outward. Once said, they exist between people rather than within one person. They create the specific exposure that the avoidance system was built to minimize, the visibility of the interior in a form that cannot be retrieved. So the verbal communication is calibrated, not dishonest in the deliberate sense, but edited. Processed through the management protocol before it arrives, shaped into something that communicates real content while maintaining the specific degree of privacy that the system requires. The warmth in the words is genuine. The warmth in the words is also less than the warmth in the interior, because the interior's full warmth has been edited before the words were formed. The nonverbal channels are less susceptible to this editing. Not immune, the avoidant manages their nonverbal presentation with genuine skill, has developed the specific ability to maintain the self-sufficient exterior through considerable interior weather, but the editing is less complete. The gaps in the management are more frequent. The moments when the interior expresses itself before the protocol can intercept are more available. This means the nonverbal channels carry more of the actual interior than the verbal channels do. Not more than the interior contains, less, always less, because the full interior of genuine love is larger than any expression can carry, but more honestly proportioned to the actual interior than the verbal communication manages to be. When you read the nonverbal expressions accurately, when you receive what the specific quality of their attention and their presence and their return is actually communicating, you are receiving something closer to the full truth of what is there than any direct verbal expression has yet provided. The specific nonverbal expression of being chosen in a room. There is something that happens in shared social spaces with the avoidant that is worth examining closely because it is one of the most consistently honest nonverbal expressions available. When you are in the same room as the avoidant, particularly in a context that includes other people, in the specific social landscape where the avoidance management skills are most practiced and most effective, something specific happens that reveals the interior more honestly than the managed social presentation does. The avoidant orients toward you, not obviously. Not in the specific, visible, announced to the room way that would itself require management. In the peripheral, deniable, could be explained as coincidence way that the avoidance nonverbal expressions always take, but consistently, reliably, in a way that is recognizable once you know what you're looking at, their humor finds you. In a room full of people whose responses are available to receive the humor, the specific quality of the humor that arrives when you are present, the particular edge of it, the specific reference of it, the way it is aimed finds you, not always explicitly. Often in the way that something can be said to a room while being directed at one person within it. The humor knows where you are. Their awareness of the room includes you as a primary element even when the conversation is elsewhere, who you are talking to, when you have moved, whether you seem engaged or withdrawn or ready to leave. This awareness is not surveillance, is the natural, involuntary, specific to claim people quality of attention that love produces. The room contains many people. You are the element of the room that is being most consistently tracked by the part of the avoidance awareness that operates below the level of conscious management. When you leave, even temporarily, even to cross the room, something in their quality of presence shifts slightly, not dramatically. In the specific, subtle way that the removal of something that was being unconsciously oriented toward always produces. A fractional reduction in the specific quality of aliveness that your presence was producing, not visible necessarily to anyone else in the room. Available to anyone who is attending to the specific quality of the avoidance presence before and after. And when you return, the shift reverses, not with the dramatic relief of someone who is anxiously monitoring your absence, with the specific, quiet, this is better quality of someone who has noticed, without deciding to notice, that what was temporarily absent is present again. All of this happens without a word, without anything that could be pointed to as a deliberate expression of feeling. In the specific, deniable, management protocol consistent form that avoidant love almost always takes, and it is, in its accumulation, one of the most honest expressions of what is present in the interior that is available, what their defensiveness reveals. The avoidant is not typically defensive about most things. Has the specific, self-sufficient quality of someone who does not require external validation and therefore does not become destabilized when others offer perspectives that contradict the avoidant's own. The self-sufficiency provides a kind of stability that ordinary criticism or challenge does not disrupt. But the avoidant who loves you has a specific area of defensiveness that is worth recognizing for what it reveals. They are protective of the connection, of what exists between you, of the reality of what was there or is there, against any framing that would minimize or dismiss or reduce it to something less than what it was. This protection is not always overt. Is sometimes expressed as a slight increase in tension when someone else makes a comment that touches the connection, as a specific quality of stillness when something is said that would require acknowledgement of the connection's significance if engaged with directly, as the particular, quiet, nonverbal refusal to participate in any diminishment of what the connection was. The avoidant who does not love you does not exhibit this specific defensiveness, has no particular investment in protecting the reality of a connection that has not been claimed. The defensiveness, however quiet, however nonverbal, however managed into something that does not obviously announce itself as the protection of something precious, is the love expressing itself in the form of refusing to allow what is real to be made smaller than it is. This is worth recognizing because it is one of the nonverbal expressions that requires the least interpretation. The protection of the connection is the connection being protected, is the love being non-verbally asserted in the form of not allowing the thing it is directed at to be dismissed, the non-verbal expression of regret. Regret is an interior experience, cannot be directly observed, but it expresses itself non-verbally in ways that are specific and recognizable to someone who is paying genuine attention. The avoidant who regrets, who has arrived at the honest accounting of what the pattern has cost, what was there and what was not adequately received, what the distance has produced in the specific absence of something that was genuinely particular, carries that regret in the body in ways the body cannot fully conceal. It shows up in a specific quality of care that sometimes arrives in the aftermath of difficult periods, the care that is slightly more attentive than the situation seems to call for. That has a quality of making up for something beneath its surface, not as a transaction but as the genuine, nonverbal expression of someone who knows the account is not balanced and is trying, without acknowledging what they are trying, to address the imbalance. It shows up in the specific quality of their attention when the connection has been strained. The avoidant who is genuinely sorry, who is carrying the honest weight of what the pattern has cost you specifically, is not identical in their presence to the avoidant who has simply moved through the management protocol without arriving at genuine regret. The presence of genuine regret produces a specific, quieter, more careful quality of attention. A quality of someone who is aware of what they are touching because they are aware of what previous touching has produced. It shows up in what they do not do, in the specific, nonverbal restraint of someone who has learned, through the honest accounting of what previous behavior produced, to be more careful. Who no longer takes for granted the things that genuine caring requires consistent, deliberate attending to. Who has arrived, however quietly and however without declaration, at a place where the previous pattern is being engaged with rather than simply run. This restraint, the nonverbal expression of someone who is trying to do something differently even without the language or the courage to fully say what they are trying to do differently, is one of the most honest forms of nonverbal expression available. Is the interior accounting producing behavioral change without the behavioral change being announced. The significance of what they share with you. The avoidant shares information selectively. This is not manipulation. Is the natural expression of someone who has learned to be careful about what the sharing of interior content produces, who has learned that not everything shared is received with the care it requires, and who has therefore developed the specific, practiced habit of sharing less rather than more. What they share with you is therefore revealing. Not the content of what is shared necessarily, though the content matters, the fact of the sharing itself. The specific, nonverbal communication that sharing something represents. This person is someone with whom this thing can be shared. This person is someone who's receiving of this content I trust enough to offer it. The avoidant who shares something with you that they have not shared with others is not making a calculated decision about vulnerability management. Is the interior having arrived at a level of trust, unannounced, undeliberated, produced through the accumulated quality of genuine experience with you that permits the sharing. The sharing is the trust's nonverbal expression. This is particularly significant for the specific content that the avoidant shares, the opinion that is genuinely theirs rather than socially calibrated, the uncertainty that the self-sufficient presentation does not ordinarily permit to be visible. The thing they find genuinely funny rather than the humor that is produced for social effect. The detail about their own experience that is real rather than managed, the interior content that is true rather than appropriate. Each of these sharings is a small act of trust. Is the interior finding a gap in the management protocol and allowing something real through? Is cumulatively the love expressing itself through the specific form of choosing you as the person with whom real things can be shared, reading the accumulation? No single nonverbal expression described throughout this examination constitutes definitive evidence of love on its own. The attentive presence could be social competence. The remembered details could be coincidence. The protective quality could be general decency. The specific quality of touch could be warmth unrelated to the specific claiming that love produces. The accumulation is what constitutes the honest evidence, when the particular quality of attention is consistent across contexts and across time. When the remembered details keep accumulating beyond what coincidence would produce. When the protection of the connection expresses itself repeatedly and specifically. When the return keeps happening despite the system's preference for maintained distance. when the real keeps finding its way through despite the management protocol's ongoing efforts, when the sharing keeps being directed at you rather than distributed generally. When the room's orientation keeps finding you as its primary reference point, the accumulation, taken honestly and without the inflation that hope can produce or the deflation that the behavior's insufficiency can produce, tells you something, tells you what the interior contains. Tells you what has been claimed and what has been genuine and what has been present in the private, unacknowledged management protocol attempting to contain form that avoidant love most commonly takes. Reading that accumulation accurately with clear eyes, with genuine honesty about both what it reveals and what it does not yet constitute, is the most useful thing you can do with everything that has been described here. It reveals the love, genuinely, honestly, without requiring the words that the interior cannot yet authorize, and it does not reveal the readiness. Does not tell you that the love has found the capacity to sustain itself in the form you need. Does not promise that the nonverbal expressions will become the verbal ones, or that the interior claiming will become the behavioral choosing that a genuine relationship requires. It tells you what is there. What you do with what is there, how you hold it, what weight you give it, whether it is sufficient for the life you are building, is the question that the love's nonverbal expressions cannot answer. Only you can answer that, from where you actually are, with what you actually know, in genuine service of the life that is actually, completely, irreducibly yours. Reading the avoidant's nonverbal love accurately is genuinely valuable. It removes the corrosive doubt that the avoidant dynamic reliably installs, the doubt about whether the connection was mutual, whether the feeling was one-sided, whether the certainty you felt about what was there was accurate or wishful. The nonverbal expressions, read clearly and honestly, answer those questions. The love is real, the claiming happened, the interior contains what you understood it to contain. And reading the nonverbal expressions accurately also means reading what they do not say. They do not say that the love is enough by itself to produce the relationship you need. They do not say that the interior claiming will find its way to consistent behavioral expression without significant work on the avoidance part. They do not say that what is present in the unguarded moments, the remembered details, the oriented presence, the return against the system's preference, will become the consistent, daily, shows up in ordinary hours reality of being genuinely accompanied. The nonverbal expressions tell you what is in the interior. They are not a map of what is coming. Are not a promise of what the interior will eventually produce. Are simply the honest, current, this is, what is actually their picture of an interior that loves you and has not yet developed the full capacity to sustain that love in the form a genuine relationship requires. Holding that picture clearly without inflating it into more than it currently is, without deflating it into less than it genuinely is the most honest position available. The love is real. The capacity to sustain it in the form you need is not yet fully developed. Both of those things are true, and both deserve to be held without the pressure to resolve one into the other. What you do with that honest picture is the question that the nonverbal expressions cannot answer for you, whether the love being real is sufficient reason to remain available while the capacity develops, whether the nonverbal expressions, however genuine, are enough to constitute the connection your life requires. Whether the interior claiming, however honestly expressed in these small and oblique ways, is a foundation worth waiting on or a reality worth honoring, while also genuinely moving toward what is more consistently available. These are questions that belong entirely to you, that require your genuine, honest, for your own sake engagement rather than any framework about avoidant psychology. That are answered not by understanding what the nonverbal expressions reveal about their interior, but by honest attention to what your own interior knows about what your life actually needs. The avoidant reveals the love without saying a word. That is real. That is worth knowing clearly and receiving honestly. And your life, the actual, present, genuinely available life that exists independently of what is being silently revealed, is also real, is worth attending to with the same quality of genuine, patient, honest attention that you have been bringing to reading what is being shown without words. Both things deserve your attention. Only one of them is completely yours.